soon. Dot a couple of T's and cross some I's.
Welcome to Coopertown High.
Nope, that's not what I wanted to load right now. Steal this content and stream it. That would be wrong. I like the sound of that. 3D printer. Almost ready, I promise. Here. Alright, that is done. We'll get going here. Just UV drying a couple of prints here. I'll get this turned off so you can at least see that if you do come in. So get the PiperMakes drone there. Get this camera set up so it's useful. Don't need to see my crotch though. It's not really necessary. Not that kind of stream. Alright. Got a few things to see. Couple of things hot off the printer. They need to be cleaned up. These need to be drying a little bit. They've still got some isopropyl alcohol on them, but they'll get cleaned up. We'll delete that little weird thing in chat. And then we'll get going here. So this is a separate drone. We'll work on that. We'll get that piece together. I have all those parts. I had one failure with a different type of drone. I think it was the Scampy drone, and I'm going to have to assemble what I have and figure out what parts are still missing because there was failures all around. You can tell my isopropyl alcohol was getting dirty. It's got kind of remnants of resin in little nooks and crannies. So a little 3D printing pro tip there, or amateurish tip. If you're starting to see this white stuff accumulate on the model after you have UV cured it, that means your isopropyl alcohol is dirty. Used to be filtered out and cleaned up or swapped out. There's a couple of different ways to do that. You can have multiple buckets. I have actually 3 buckets, so I rotate. So when I have isopropyl alcohol that's dirty, I'll swap it out and let it sit. Well, I'll hit it with the UV light and then let it sit for um, several days, and then all of the little resin bits will filter down to the bottom, and you can kind of scoop out the clean alcohol off the top and reuse it. So it's kind of like your mining tailings pond, where the stuff filters to the bottom, and you can just let it accumulate there. The bin I have full of old resin is, I think it's 3 or 4 inches deep now of just this white resin that's eventually, when it gets full to the point where it's absurd and not useful anymore, I can take let the alcohol out that I can reuse, and set it outside and let the rest evaporate, and what's left I can bag up and put in the trash. How's it going, Steven? Good to see you. Honestly, it's been kind of a rough morning, but I'm hoping that the stream will turn things around a little bit and get me back into a more positive mindset. Posted a video this morning with some gameplay that I did last night with a new game, and apparently people don't like it, so it's just hemorrhaging subscribers. So whatever it is, then I guess I need to stop doing that. Kind of funny. Right. So I'm going to, at first, I want to build these first. I do have this PiperMakes model that I need to keep working on. I'm doing armor panels red. I've already filled in the air intakes with black ink. And this is kind of the new toy I got this week, because this black ink that's used for calligraphy, well, it's a super high viscosity. It's basically like the Black Templar contrast paint, but even better, because it's like a sponge into these little nooks and crannies for the air intakes. So put that in there, nice dark black, and it's got a gloss to it, which is fine for that. And really cool little effect, because this is a lot cheaper than contrast paint. This will last me quite a while. Good times. Alright. Yeah, you know what? It's already getting better. Just can't dwell on that kind of stuff. This is another one of these. Not the exact type. It doesn't have the big wings. It'll be a different form. It'll be much closer to this guy. But it'll have different weapons options, and it'll look a little bit different. That's kind of the neat thing about the PiperMakes models, is there are just tons and tons of different options. There's just I could be printing those all day long with lots of different types. Models remind me of space. Huh. Made some mangles across. You're always a wealth of obscure information there, Emery. So I picked out some weapons options for this one, but then overprinted. So this has more weapons options that will actually go in the mech. These little missile packs are neat because they can be used in other things, and so I'm just going to have them handy. I've already got a bag of parts from the previous prints, so all sorts of different little things that'll add to models someday down the road. Just neat to have, even for later PiperMakes models, because that's what I did for this little drone cutie here. This missile pack is out of this set, not the little drone set, so hopefully he'll be unique amongst all the other drones. He's got little missiles. Really happy with how these ones came out, with the transition from red to black. I tried doing the FX fluorescent red, but what I quickly discovered is these are really good through an airbrush, but brushed on, when you hit it with the UV light, it shows every single brush mark to the point of absurdity. I'll grab the UV light and see if I can, might have still some visible. No, I can't really see it because I went over it with the other reds, but wow, that instant migraine there. Okay, turn that off. All right, what other stuff we got going on? We got. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really happy with. I do have to go through with the ink and hit all the little nooks and crannies, so that's going to be kind of several hours just to do that, and then our red armor panels will go along. He's going to kind of match the drones. He has a base waiting for him that's already prepped because I did it along with all the others. I still have to wash the steel part, but that's where that will go when they are done. Not too shabby. They are adorable, and I'm gonna as soon as I can. I'm printing off these larger drones, but. As soon as I have an opening in the printing schedule, I'm going to print another 5 of them. Alright, the other thing I need to work on today are prepping these for paint, the Battletech buildings. And I feel bad I can't remember the name of the person who designed them, but later on I will dig through Twitter and find them because he shared these, even the little water tower, which will look good on the Battletech board. A nice background for when I need to photograph mechs. So, I'm going to get those prepped for paint. So you can see I took out big chunks of the bottom, hollowed them out so I wouldn't use too much resin, and then cut big holes in them because you want multiple holes in the bottom of your hollow resin minis, or else they will just be full of wet resin, which will eventually leak out, eat their way out, and ruin your figure and whatever your figure is standing on, including your table or small children. So that's also what needs to be done. So lots of little things for projects that got started and have yet to be kind of moved forward. I did finish the assault intercessors for my son's army, and so now that those are off the table, I can start focusing on some of these other things. I'm going to put these to the side because they're pretty wet still. They've got some evaporating to do. I'll put them down there. And we can get these assembled, and then we'll prep the buildings, and then maybe work on the robot. We'll see what's going on. I think someone is doing playing Spirit Warrior Max. That's Wasabi Games. Under scale, create imagine battle movies. There's a lot to unpack there, Emery. I only understood about half of what you'd referenced there. Rid of that silly message. Alright, so let's build these things. So each one gets 2 wings, because there's 2 of them here. So 2 wings, that Gatling gun, and 2 missiles. We're going to be careful and not use 2 of the same wing. Alright, these are different. Because that's something I would do. Put 2 left wings on it. So what is that? Kind of neat kind of cruise missile looking rockets. Not too shabby. Alright, and then this little vectored thrust engine goes in the back. Like so. The little Gatling gun on the front. Check Be pretty easy assembly here. Nothing too painful. Get it done. Turn on the work light of destiny here. 1, 2, 3. All right, not quite so bright. Let's see what's left of our vision, or non-migraine portion of the day. What are you working on today, Stephen? Or even Emery, what are you working on? Some Battletech on the table. Hopefully this connection stays up. Comcast has been a little hit or miss lately. So if I drop out, that's probably why. It's a company that is laying fiber optic through the neighborhood, and so we're crossing our fingers, hoping that gets done here soon, so we can swap over. So I'm not the biggest fan of Comcast at the moment. Get some wings going. These are nice big drones. So I'll have to decide how we want the wings. We could do wings up a little bit, or down. I suppose it would depend on how we post it, what it can be doing on its base. We'll have to figure out the bases later at some point. Nice and snug. I think we'll go down just gently, like that, for this one, and then we'll do it a little bit different for the other one, just to make them a little unique. Well, two of the same thing. Looking forward to painting these. So again, I'm going to keep going with that red and black smooth transition because it looks awesome and definitely got a good reception from people who saw it. Alright, so just slightly down angle. Is that 10, 15 degrees, something like that. We'll get our way here. Do some mechs in a bit. Yes. That's the other thing I need to do more of. I haven't done a Lance of 4-star of mechs in a while, so I need to get back on that because I know some people follow on YouTube just for the Battletech stuff. So I need to keep people happy with some content. Even though my interests vary quite a bit too. Make sure people who follow get something they want every once in a while. That's just about the same. It's maybe just a touch low, but I'm just a little late at this point. Alright, it's a cool little drone. I'm gonna have to figure out a flight stand that wasn't included in the model. That's okay. We'll come up with something. I have a bunch of copper wire that I can employ. I nailed myself yesterday. It's a nice little scar going, or at least a cut. Hopefully it will heal and go away. I was opening a bottle of resin with this doodad. We had it like that, and I was trying to get the metal little thing they used to keep the bottle closed and went right across my hand. And I kind of knew when I was doing it, like, well, this is kind of a risky thing. I probably shouldn't be doing it like this, but I was in a rush to get it done. As always, when you're in a rush to do things, that's when mistakes are made. I think I might leave the missiles off for now. I'm not even sure where they would go. Oh, you know what? They're slotted for fitting right here. Convenient. I think I'm going to leave them off for now and paint them separately. I'll do a... Alright, easy peasy. One drone done. Again, keep the missiles separate. 4 little missiles to paint. I appreciate that the vectored engine here is separate because you can, again, do little things to make the drone slightly different from any of its peers that might be printed later. Even at the same time. So we're going to kind of we'll vector this down a little bit. So maybe this one will be kind of recoiling back a little bit as if it were just hitting the brakes. No, it's actually upside down, so now it's going to go like this. Because now it's glued. That's okay. Always good to know which way is up on your model. You know, prevent all those little mistakes. Oops. The only tricky thing with these PiperMakes models is mirroring parts and kind of figuring out which parts need to be mirrored, and then making sure you do it correctly. Don't mess up your print. I've already had to a couple of times reprint models, at least reprint parts that I didn't mirror properly, or I forgot to mirror entirely. First. Just eyeballing this to try to make it so it's the same angle up slightly. Slightly up. So we got 2 with the angles. The wings are slightly off to make them unique. And the vectored thrust on the back is different. One's going up, one's pushing them down, and one's pushing forward. Alright, so good. Good. The Gatling gun in here. Yeah, I made the mistake with the 240% scale Mad Dog, if you recall seeing that in the past, posting pictures on Twitter and video, but I printed it hollow, and a couple of places it was hollow without a hole in it, and I didn't notice there was a little compartment in the leg that never got cured, and so when I was moving things downstairs with the finished basement, I noticed there is a pool of resin around the base down the leg and around the base of the Mad Dog. And at that point it was pretty much ruined and not even worth salvaging. So that Mad Dog ended up in the trash because I couldn't do anything with it at that point. Even trying to harden that resin, which was at that point a mixture of resin and paint and other things, it just wouldn't harden no matter how much I left it under the UV light. And so it is gone. That poor Mad Dog doesn't get to be on the shelf anymore. It's very sad. It's a good reminder. Part of that learning process for 3D printing. If you're going to make something hollow, make sure that there's no hidden hollows that you didn't drain. Because even if you try to do things like after the fact, empty it, and then I tried super gluing holes that I found, the cracks, and all it does, it'll eat through the super glue too. So at that point it was a significant lost cause. I like to use old sprues for handles, for painting handles. This is the sprue I found from the forest ancient dude from Age of Sigmar. I gave away the model, and I didn't find this until after I'd already sent the model away. But that's just spare parts anyway. So the model I sent to someone was complete. Just when you make you have a choice when you're making this model, which direction you want it to go. That went flying. I need a longer one for the drone. This part's long. So you have to let me know which mechs you're working on. I want to know. I had to put the Mad Dog in. I know, it's very sad. Not fun, because I did put a considerable amount of effort into that Mad Dog, and I was pretty proud of it. It was pretty disappointing that it had to go into the trash. It's a good painting handle. I like this one. It's got the angle on it. It's one drone, two drone, three drones, blue drones, red drones. This drone drives a little car. What, you don't just randomly start reciting Dr. Seuss? No, it's just me. We had to ban certain things. I think I put these wings on backwards. If this is the flap, then they're on backwards. What do you think? I don't know, it doesn't matter. They look cool either way. But I see now how it might have been designed the other way. So this will be on this side, this will be on that side. Then you have a flat on the front and swept in the back. But too late. Too late. I'm sure if PiperMakes actually sees this video, well, she will correct me. They'll probably not. Just do what you want. You can put missile packs on little drones. Why not? Hurt nobody. Not like I'm a competitive gamer anyway. I couldn't use these drones in GW competition anyway, so hardly matters. foresee a lot of priming in my future here. Between these drones, the buildings, yeah, a lot of priming in the future, which is fine. It's actually quite cathartic. Priming doesn't require a whole lot of brain power, especially with the airbrush. Pretty hard to screw that up. Or a mad dog. I'll have to do another one someday. I do have a large raven that I keep meaning to start. Also a crab. I need to do the crab as well. %240% scale crab. Who likes crab legs? We like crab legs. The noise of the furnace isn't too loud. You can see it on the audio input capture, so I know it's being caught by the streaming, by OBS, but I hope it's not too loud. It's the one downside of the hobby cave as it currently exists. Oh, that is weird. That's the thing that's stuck. Okay. That's weird. A piece of the model that was below all the other pieces. This water tower is neat. A little tricky when you print it because the supports run all the way up through the middle, depending on your angle of print. I did just top down. I guess I figured there was not too much flat surface up here to worry about. Getting it off of the supports was a little bit of a challenge because I had to reach in with. Oh, those are the building from non-geo. You know what? It's possible. I'm such a jerk. I have forgotten his name. So if that's who did it, then absolutely he deserves some credit. I did hollow them out, and then I punched the holes with the slicing software. And I figured I just make the holes as big as I can to get all the resin out and get light in. Was the other kind of challenge with printing stuff hollow is getting the light, getting the UV light inside so the inside can be cured as well as the outside, because you don't want uncured resin on the inside just dripping out. You put this on your nice Battletech map, and it leaks on your map or your table. That would not be fun. Yep, so I'll have to I'll dig through Twitter later and refresh my memory what it is and give them a shout out. I think at least in the notes of the video here. So very cool little. These comes from the little free pack that he has. And these are the two smaller buildings. So this is the level 1 building and this is the level 2, I believe. Yeah. They go quite a bit bigger. I think he had a 6 or a 7 level tall building. I have it sliced on a file. I just don't have enough resin right now to run a job that big. I'm waiting for next month's resin delivery. Had to tighten the belt a little bit around here with expenditures. So, other cool thing to show off, not the bottle cap stuck to it, but this shield off of the PiperMakes drone. This will eventually go on his arm on this side. But I figured I would paint it separately because that would create a little bit of a challenge here. I got quite a bit of things left to do here with the little energy shield. I painted it white first and then went over the top with the arithmetic blue contrast to get into the nooks and crannies, and then I'm going to hit it with the airbrush with another shade of blue to get a gradient from beginning to end, which will hopefully look cool. Neat little shield. And then in the files, you can print the shield independently from the energy panels. And then these energy panels are actually quite neat. I foresee lots of uses for them in other projects because these top ones, at least, are pretty close to the size of a Battletech hex. If I print them just a little bit larger, if I go like 120% or 130, that would fill most of the hex with those smaller hexes, and that would be a cool kind of techie base for Battletech. So that's something I will try at some point in the future. So, yeah. Alright, so those are prepped for priming. I'll move them off the table onto the priming table. Buy us some space. Video in and of itself. There we go. That over here. Alright, little Hans pedestal bot. Let's remove that, whatever that is. Weird that they just show up and drop some random link. I guess it must work, or else they wouldn't do it, but it seems kind of silly to me. Alright, so let's show this off because that would actually be neat. We'll do some detail, we'll fill some crevices here, and you can see how the black ink functions. Will be interesting. Let's try to do the interesting stuff and not the dull stuff. On camera, do the boring stuff off camera. Right. So let's show this off. Nice thin brush, but not a super good brush, because it will just wick up the brush. So let's see, find some crevices here. Let's do his armor there. So you're going to see pretty quick how it just wicks right into the crevices. Basically your Black Templar, not Black Templar, is it Black Templar? What is it? Basilicum Gray. Good for air vents, because it will just wick down into the crevices. Hope everybody's having a good Friday. My own salvation for my own crummy Friday is if everybody else can have a good one, I'll feel better. I don't have to. I can sleep knowing I took the brunt of it, and that's okay. I can take the brunt of it. Not every day has to be wonderful. I'm going to have to make a hard choice here. next few days, the local school district has upped their pay for sub pay up to $200 a day. So even after taxes, that's a considerable amount of money. And so we have to make a decision if I wanted to do that at least part of the week or a few days a week to contribute, because I'm still not making any money off of YouTube stuff, off the hobby things. So it's hard to turn down that much money, even though it's not the healthiest thing in the world for me to dive back into the fray. We'll see. It is on the mind. Right, and an even thinner brush for this. I really should have done this backpack separately, because there's even one back here. It's kind of hard to get to. Because ultimately, if I do, that means less time working on this project. Not this painting project, but the bigger project of trying to build the hobby thing into something that can contribute to the family. So if that slows down, then it's all the more likely to fail. If I can't keep producing content at the pace that I'm producing it. So it's a lot of pressure. Make YouTube a weekend thing. And I actually don't get very much work done on weekends because I do the parenting thing. I've got the 2 kids to keep an eye on, so the only time I can really get stuff done is during weekdays when they're at school. And in the near future, the school district, we might actually be shifting to homeschool if some stars don't align. So that'll mean I'll be basically being a teacher all day at home. Yeah, you're right, Emery. You gotta do. The most important thing is doing the responsible thing for your family, but of course that can sometimes be a conflicting choice, because if I could go back and teach, but my blood pressure will spike again and I'll probably end up not in a good place. So it's not really all about the money, there's also the health concerns. And the last person in the family didn't get COVID, and so I'm pretty sure at this point that if I start subbing, it won't be long before I do. And high blood pressure being a comorbidity is a thing. So I will think about it and we'll make a choice. So really cool black ink. And good coverage too. When you put it in the little nooks and crannies, it's going to stay dark black. Don't have to worry about it lightening up or showing the stuff underneath. It's just a matter of time. If I had another 6 months or a year to build this thing up into something that I could actually bring money in, and that's different. We'll see. Last thing I'm going to do is bore you guys with it. You've all got your own things to tackle throughout your day. Because in an ideal world, I'd love to just go back to teaching, because that's where I was the happiest. Go back and find another history classroom and just teach until the day I die. But that day might come sooner than one expects if I'm not careful. Right, I'm actually going to do that armor red, so there's not really any point in. I'm just going to set the ink aside for a minute. Not exactly how I expected things to go when I went down the teaching path. If you'd asked me a year and a half ago what I would be doing, I'd be like, well, I'll be in a classroom and I'll be teaching until they drag me out. So I've thinned this a little bit, not just painting right out of the pot as it stands. Has a little bit of medium in it. It's not quite as thick. I always say that to prevent the comments. Ah, he paints out of the pot. A monster. They paint out of the pot, but I thin them in the pot to what I usually will go with as far as coverage to prevent the thickness. I caught the ink that wasn't quite dry. One downside of the ink is it takes a little bit to dry. Wacky few years, that's for sure. It is interesting interacting with people who have the kind of judgment about the expectations that you're the provider in a family, and in this case, currently, for 14 years, it was a partnership where the wife and I both brought in money, where we're both working, and that's been challenged by this new situation. But the response to it, while we are fine financially, we're okay. We're getting by with the current situation, and could, if we needed to do the homeschooling thing. The judgment from people is substantive, like having conversations with extended family that basically boil down to, if I don't get a job and start making the money, then the prediction that they're making is it will all fall apart, and you'll be gone. Awfully high stakes, I guess. But I think that's probably pretty typical as far as trying something new. Trying something that is outside the norms for tradition. There's going to be pushback and judgment. I'm supposed to go to the factory and work until the day I die. That's the expectation. My current mindset is entirely positive because you gotta treat, especially in times like these, you gotta treat every day like it's a gift. Like, I could have easily caught COVID from my kids. I took care of my youngest one when he was feeling crummy, and Mrs. McFrog was incapacitated by it in bed. I took care of the kids for the most part, and I didn't get it, but I could have easily gotten it, and I could have easily been a bad case. Yes, I'm vaccinated, but it's not a universal panacea. I gotta take each day as a gift and make sure that you can look back and say that you used that day well, and that you didn't just do something because it was expected of you by people who don't really support you. Because if you know, hey, what if this worked out and I ended up with enough money to take care of, to bring money in and do well, to the point where they were coming to me and saying, oh, well, now you have all this money, now I want some. That'd be an interesting conversation. Early on, when you're a newbie like me and you've only got 650 followers, every view counts. And I appreciate those of you who show up to streams because you're here right now and you're being awesome and supporting this. But most of my friends aren't here. Most of my friends don't click on the videos. Most of my friends don't show up to things. So probably not a good topic if I want to stay positive today. Topic change. So I may just split the baby, and do a couple of days a week. The thing is, I know the district will say we want you to work every single day because they're so short on subs. So it's going to be tough to resist that pressure, because you can make $1,000 a week before taxes. That's pretty nice. And as far as teaching goes, subbing is not the... That's like... it's not as stressful, because you're not coming up with curriculum. You're showing up and teaching what's there. The stress comes with not knowing what you're teaching until you get there, which can be tough, and then sometimes being asked to teach things that you don't know very well. but $200 a day before taxes is it's interesting. What silver color is that? The silver color is... grab the bottle. It is the Vallejo acrylic metal color chrome. I'm a big fan of these. This one's a little easier to see because I haven't opened it yet. But these are awesome. This one's dark aluminum, so it's a little bit darker, but big fans of these. I have all the respect in the world for subs. Yeah, it's talk about a thankless job. Yeah, though the thing is with sick time and being a teacher, I almost never took like personal days, or and I've tried my best to avoid, well, before the whole COVID thing hit, avoiding sick days in general as a teacher, because it actually ends up being more work for the teacher to create sub-plans and deal with the carnage that results from things not getting done as you hope they'd get done. Because like jokingly, though, it's an entirely factual statement to say I didn't write very many lesson plans over the years. I think I probably wrote 5 or 6 official lesson plans in all of the time that I taught. 14 years of teaching, maybe one a year. And so trying to convert what I did in my head, so I show up to work that day, knowing what I'm going to do. I've got whatever materials I need with the sources, the books we're going to look at, whatever. But how we work through them, all that stuff's in my brain. And so if I'm prepping for a sub, I now have to take what's in my brain and explain it all in step-by-step format for the sub. And that was a huge pain in the butt. And so oftentimes when I had the sniffles, of course this was pre-COVID, not feeling very good, you feel like you would just want to take a day because you feel kind of crummy. I tended not to do that. I tended to just go and get through it just because it was such a pain to get a sub. But yeah, I have a lot of respect for subs. When I was first starting out, like many teachers, you don't have the job right out of school, and so I subbed in this really tough district that thankfully it's improved in the past few years, but it was pretty scary. There was one of the schools had all of the windows broken just a few days before the school year started, and so every single class had boarded up windows because they just didn't have the money to replace the windows quickly. And being a sub in that district was a little scary because the kids were fearless and aggressive towards subs. They kind of knew that there was not really any punishment for messing with the sub, and so that was like trial by fire, going in there as a brand new teacher and saying, all right, let's get started, everybody sit down, let's pull out your stuff, let's get going. And the response is curse words, F you, I don't have to do anything, shut up and sit down response. And so yeah, that was trial by fire. I've got a lot of respect for subs, and when I did have to get a sub and got a negative report, I tended to come down pretty hard on the kids. They learned pretty quick that if you mess with the sub in my classroom, then you're going to regret it. That was one of the few times that I actually used collective collective punishment because I'm not there and the kids know how to behave and they got to police each other a little bit. And it takes a whole lot of bystanders to, when it's just one kid messing with the sub. The rest have to tell him or her to knock it off. Lots of respect for subs. It's tough work, especially with COVID now too, with all sorts of safety protocols that have to be followed. That I'm also not super excited about having to do if I do decide to go back. Plus, not trying to, not getting into the masking debate, but I'm personally not a big fan of wearing a mask and then teaching while wearing a mask, because I talk a lot when I'm in class, and from personal experience trying to teach in a mask, I ended up quite winded several times and having to rein back to keep from quite literally passing out. I don't know if I could wear a K95 or whatever all day long in a classroom without passing out. I don't know how doctors do it and say it's fine. I don't begrudge you. You want to wear one, go for it. Personally, I've had some issues with it. Different when you're just going into the store and buying something. I'm fine with that. Cool. Teaching general thankless job. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. The vast majority of teachers I ever worked with were passionate and cared deeply about making sure kids were learning and successful and prepared for the world. 99 out of 100 of them. But yeah, it's just like any job, any industry. You always hear about the worst ones. They make the news. The sub who shows up and eats an entire fried chicken in front of the students instead of teaching. Which actually happened, by the way. Let's see. Pretty good coverage. I like my fist in red because it's got pretty solid coverage. It's one of my favorite Citadel paints. Covering chrome and other metallics can be annoying sometimes because it'll keep showing through. But my fist in red does a pretty good job of reducing that. Oh, Russian bots, what are you gonna do? There's only one teacher I had in school that wasn't passionate about passing on knowledge. He just certainly not a job you get for money. So that's kind of a tricky thing because, and I'm not. I had teachers that in class when I was in school that were definitely that I hated their classes, but then in retrospect look back and realize that hey, I actually learned quite a bit. And then there's, of course, there's the teachers, which I'm sure you're referencing here, that are just kind of phoning it in. I think that happens. Sometimes just you get burned out. Mostly by being requested to do things that have little to do with teaching. So I always told people if it was just showing up and teaching every day, then it would be an awesome job and I would actually have no stress doing what I'm doing in the classroom. But it's all the other stuff, the bureaucracy, the meetings about meetings that may result in possible meetings, training for things that don't matter. That's a drain. You need to look around with peers that you know are ethical professionals, and you're all kind of collectively suffering under this weight of the bureaucracy. There's always one more thing to do, too. Everyone's going to get an A, and then well, at least you got your A, right? Oh, that's sad. My mom has a story from when she was in grad school. This was in the 1960s. The professor showed up and basically said, "You're going to choose your own grade. You're going to do the work, and then you're going to honestly assess what you did. We'll do a self-assessment, and you'll choose your grade for the end of the semester." And so, human condition as it is, most people just gave themselves A's and did very little in the class. But my mom was quite frustrated with that because she always worked really hard in school. She loved learning and felt quite cheated by a system that seemed to disincentivize learning. Like her A was earned and others' A's were not. And it didn't matter. Because they all just looked the same on a piece of paper. And I'm digging the red here. Yeah, the Mephiston, even if you go with a lighter red later, it's a great base coat, for sure. Even when you water it down like I did. My mom was why I got into teaching, really. She taught first grade for years. And she for quite a while, she taught a first grade gifted, but EBD class. So these were first graders who were often profoundly intelligent. I'm talking kids with like 150 IQ, but also facing significant challenges at home, and so many of them just red flags all around. But teaching these kids to read and to enjoy learning and see school as a safe place, definitely a cool accomplishment that I tried to emulate with my career as best I could. Cool lady. The other cool story, we decided that I was going to go to a school, a private school, to kind of take advantage of the opportunity and to maximize my education, I suppose. And before I was officially in the school, we had to go to a little like interview meeting. It was like a party, and at the time I really didn't appreciate it, but my mom wore this, speaking of red, she wore this red dress that really set her apart from everybody else in the room. And at that point I was like your typical teenager who everything is embarrassing. And so I felt embarrassed, like, Mom, why are you wearing that dress? It's crazy. You're sticking out like a sore thumb. And at the time, she's like, you don't understand yet, but it's important that you stand out and make yourself seen. And sure enough, I did get in, and throughout my time there, the 3 years that I was in high school, before going off to the U, on multiple occasions, people who were at the teachers who were at that event made comments, "Oh, you're the one with the mom with the red dress." And so now I understand what she was doing. She was laying the seed in their minds, so when they're looking through all those applications for entry, mine would stick out. So she put herself out there for me, and that was pretty awesome. I'll always remember that. Moms are cool. Alright, should I do that one red too, and then that one? You know what? If I go all red, I can come in with the black later. So let's do that. We'll make the wingtips fade out to black, so now I don't have to worry about the edge work. Change of plans. That I'm not learn very well in the classical way, but I do love to learn. I want to get actually access to knowledge. You know what? There's always going to be those opportunities to learn, and you're absolutely right. You're just you're probably one of those people that doesn't learn in the traditional system, but you can still crave and seek out knowledge. It's something I've tried to instill with my kids. We've got this big library downstairs now with all these history books. I mean, the information is there, and some of this information is not online. In fact, a lot of this information is not online. Becoming an informed person is more than just being able to Google something or head to Wikipedia. If you genuinely want to know stuff, you gotta go out and find it, and you gotta have the passion for learning. And so it's cool that you have that desire to learn. That's one of the hardest things as a teacher to try to tackle, is the fact that it's difficult to instill a desire to learn. I had kids over the years that would show up and they'd sit in the chair and cross their arms and say, "You can't make me do this. You can't make me whatever. Learn, do this assignment, whatever." And you know what? They're right. You can't force someone to learn. It requires a curiosity. It requires a passion. And many of these kids, especially if you're teaching secondary, a lot of these kids are showing up as damaged goods. And it doesn't mean you're giving up on them. You never give up on a kid. But it's important to remember, especially for teachers, not to take things personally. Because again, I had run-ins with kids, even in the last year. Last year I did it. kid who was just flat out borderline violent, but ain't so angry with me about everything. And just an angry kid, and it had nothing to do with me. And a good teacher is going to remember that, because when kids are going to test you and push you, oftentimes you're not the reason why that kid is angry. That kid is angry because of all of the other stuff they have to deal with in their life before they even get to your classroom. They're carrying all that baggage with them into your classroom. And then you're going to ask them to learn on top of it. That goes right down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't feel safe somewhere, if you're hungry, if you're cold, you're not going to be a successful learner. I went around that like I was going to do silliness. That's what I get for painting and talking at the same time. Good old switch tasking. I'm never going to forget that kid. Super angry. Unfortunately, it's not a very good home life. Then again, I also had kiddos over the years who were going through a lot of stuff at home, and this is part of the reason why I'm frustrated with people who kind of dismiss trauma towards kids by saying, oh, well, kids are resilient. That's a myth perpetuated by systems that harm children and ignore harms to children. They say, oh, well, they're resilient, they'll get over it. No, kids are not just little adults. They don't process trauma in the same way that adults do, because they lack the machinery through experience to process trauma as we would describe it as successfully. Hi, Kat, that definitely wants to be on stream. Thanks for visiting. I should have closed my door. But what was I saying? Had kids who show up who were clearly dealing with issues of trauma in their lives. Kids who have lost parents, have lost siblings, who are in abusive situations. And you can't predict how they're going to react to your classroom, how you're going to react to you, because kids don't process trauma in a predictable manner, which gets misinterpreted as resiliency. They say, oh, well, this kid is not reacting to this trauma in a way that I expect an adult would, therefore they're fine, because they're not complaining. Oh, the kid didn't say anything. Oh, wow. So they're not going through trauma because they didn't say anything? Well, how many of us have gone through trauma as children and were either told to stay quiet or had our concerns ignored to the point where we stopped complaining entirely? That's a lot of kids. So don't tell me kids are resilient. That's something adults tell themselves so that they don't have to deal with problems. We don't have to ask tough questions about what happens to kids. Wow, this got super serious and sad. I don't know how this happened. I just kind of knew it was going to be a rough day. Sorry about that. I get passionate about certain topics, and one of those is ignoring problems with kids when they don't deserve it. as adults, one of our primary concerns should be to make sure that kids don't have to go through all the bull crap that we had to go through. That's like number one goal for me as a parent. Don't make my kids go through things, the negative things that harmed me growing up, and that I know harm other people. Alright, wings turned out looking pretty good. I'm going to definitely hit them with the black. And so the plan is much like the drones. The wingtips will be black. We'll do the black on the armor, this armor on the shoulder, and probably down here as well with the airbrush. And then I'll come back in and clean up the chrome, because hitting that with the airbrush would be a thing and a half. There's actually really good research on resiliency and how kids process trauma in a way that's profoundly problematic, troublesome, because kids tend to internalize it, and then it manifests later in life in ways that are unpredictable. And so you tend to get into drugs, you tend to make decisions that are teenagers are already not good at making decisions because their brains are not fully developed. But add in trauma on top of that, and you're going to have all sorts of challenges. I'm going to have to do something red on his arm, probably with this arm piece, and on his hand to break up the chrome. But we're off to a good start, I think, with the red. I think he's going to look pretty good. Shabby. Alright. I need a break from the red. My brain's going fuzzy. Alright, what to do? I do have these guys still. Oh, I don't know what to do with these. Maybe I'll ask what you think. I thought I really liked the yellow armor. The longer I look at them, the more frustrated I am with it. Because they just look like, to me, they just look like McDonald's infantry now. So I don't know if I'm going to power through and keep going. Because I don't think I can keep doing an army of these with this scheme. So I'm tempted to rethink it. I don't know about this. This is one of those projects that's going to sit on hold for a little bit, because I have to either come to an acceptance with that scheme, or just go over them and start over again. I also want to do these at some point here soon. My poor Seraphon army that has been neglected for so long makes me sad. They're so dusty. Oh, poor little skinks. They want to be finished. They cry out from the box, "MacFrog, forgotten about us." They're like 75% done. And then I've got the big dinosaur that I'm still working on. Oh dear. I can't. See, that's the problem. Once I get into that mindset that it's McDonald's, now they're just the McDonald's infantry, and so now I have to go back and scary. And then get this guy too. Proxy for the skink leader frog dude. I'm still gonna probably buy the that big one, the AOS guy who has got the big rings going around it. I can't remember what the name of it is, but I'll do that at some point. But once I have two pennies to rub together. All right. What to do. Got a bunch of priming we need to do. I think I might wrap this up here in the next few minutes to go get lunch, and then it's 12:15 already, and come back and do more priming and be ready for getting stuff done on Monday. Lord Croak, I think, was the one I was thinking of. Whichever one is the big, that has the big stone circle around it. That seems to be floating. It's a relatively new one for that. Oh, we also have these to do too. Robot Legion Army that kind of got stuff to the side. So many arms, so little time. Because they got smashed. I had all of them set up on the top of my computer case upstairs, and then the cat jumped up, and my wife, totally not her fault, but she tried to get the cat down, and it resulted in knocking all of the models off and got crushed on the floor. Oh, that's too bad. I have the Elegoo Saturn printer, which is awesome. I've had it just works. It's as close to a plug and play system that I've run into. There are a couple of times where I've done things to mess it up, but the printer itself has been amazing. There are a couple of things I would tweak on settings for the default from the slicer. That God, my brain is fried. The slicer, what's it called? Anyway, there are default settings in the slicer that I have downloaded, the name of which is escaping me at the moment. But it doesn't have the long enough cook time on the standard Elegoo resin, and so I was having printer failures until I figured out that it wasn't quite spending enough time on the base layers. Chitubox, yep, Chitubox. Yep, that's it. Thank you. But once I pumped that up to 40 to 45 seconds, then it's been flawless prints after that. The only failures I've had are with models themselves and not being properly supported. Thinking about getting that one. I haven't had one yet. Well, I think it would probably, if you were asking for my thoughts, I was going to assume that you don't mind the input for a moment. If you know you're going to be printing a lot, you might be frustrated by the small print bed on the smaller model. But if you have a limited amount of space in your hobby area, then it might be better to go with a smaller form one. If you're only printing off like a couple of figures each time and you're fine with that, then there's no reason to go with the really big version. When I made that choice, it was I needed to be able to print a lot of mechs at the same time, and maybe there was a little bit of greediness and my desire to print lots of stuff at once, and so I just wanted to max out that build plate. But looking back, I could have probably gone with the smaller one and been fine, because right now I'm drowning in resin figures that I have not yet painted, and I'm at the point now where I have so many that I have a backlog of probably 6 months worth of stuff to paint. And really I only use the machine for brand new stuff that comes out, so, and a lot of times now it's just sitting idle because I go through resin faster than I really should. unless you know you're going to be printing off a ton of stuff and really big models, then I would just go with the smaller Mars or smaller Elegoo system. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up on the site and figure out what the actual name is. Yes, I have dreams of a grand dinosaur army down the road between the AOS stuff and the OnePageRules models like these ones. We'll see. What else? Still, of course, yeah, so this will reinforce the point. All of the mechs that still need to be painted. And this isn't even all of them. This is about half. Got the little mauler in here. So cute. Cute little maulers. There's two of them. The catapult. Another catapult. K2. So, yeah. I mean, if you're pumping out stuff, models, and painting them fast, and then the Saturn's awesome. And I'm very happy with Elegoo. It's good to go. All right, I'm going to wrap things up. Holy moly. I wasn't kidding, Steven, when I said I've got a lot of mechs to paint. Okay. Here, I've got another tray. Here. This has the big raven and the crab. A bunch of tanks to paint. These are the big boys. Crabs, got a couple atlases in there, got a grizzly, king crab, lots of little bundles of mech joy. Yeah, so no shortage. How many fall? I've yet to see my buddies from across the state, so a lot of these are going to be primed and then just tossed into a box for a Christmas gift. So they'll each get about 30 mechs in a box, and that'll be their Christmas present from December, since I haven't seen them yet. Whenever I can convince them to travel across the state. Yeah, they're beautiful when they're finally painted. I just need to find the time to do that and the motivation to do it with all the other projects that are in the way. There's one or two mechs. A couple. Alright, I gotta wrap this up. I'm starving to death. Go get some food and water and go be a productive person for a little bit and pick up the kids from school. So I appreciate you guys coming out. You rock. I really support. I really appreciate the support as I try to turn this into a thing. So take care, be awesome, make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow, and I will see you later.